of Sand by Geetanjali Shree. Translated by Daisy Rockwell. Part 2. Sunlight. 5. Something moved inside the flat. Buddy leaned over quickly, thinking less of him would make him less visible. A light came on inside, and the darkness was deepening outside. But who would tell him that this was the reason it was less possible for him to be seen? Even if you don't have a beard, a straw will stick in it if you are feeling guilty. He leaned over in the attitude of a criminal, and then, ensuring that there was no one to the right or left of the road who might see him, he executed an acrobatic maneuver, jumping up to a higher branch. Here the foliage was thicker, but he had a clear view of the flat. His ridiculous sister had left the balcony open, and the whole house was lit up as though it were Diwali, so that anyone could ogle her lifestyle under cover of darkness and leaves. Betty had never worried about peeping toms. She was right there on display, and had seated their mother on a swing in a dervish-type outfit to make her a laughing-stock. Swing, swing! Look, everyone, have you ever seen such a lifestyle? And look, clothing that swishes as she walks. And oof, what if Ma falls? She used to wear beautiful sarees, tied them smartly. And now? But I began to remember Ma in sarees, which she has thrown away, he thought forlornly. And such a storm of grief arose in his heart that he grew exhausted and fell asleep. The man slumbering in sari memories was no less expert in that craft than any sari merchant, and so he began to unroll them all, bolt by bolt, the entire stock, in the forlorn courtyard of his mind. And since he was in a tree, he also began to hang them from the branches. There were the saris that Ma wore in his childhood, and then the ones he had bought for her on his official trips or transfers. Ma was Ma only in a sari. On the Dashashwamedh Ghat in Banaras, descending the stairs from the Vishwanath temple with the other women, tiny clay lamps alight on her tray, wearing a silk sari from Mysore. It was vermilion with a thin gold-striped border. She wore the pallu over her head, her face framed by the golden strips. The woman leaned down to set the lit diyas adrift in the water, and the starry sky descended into the river, a shimmering Milky Way sparkling coquettishly. Ma lightly wiped her cheek with her pallu, and her son, sleeping in the tree, seemed to feel her buttery touch. Then it transformed into a slap on the cheek, which Ma had given him as she came out of the kitchen. He couldn't remember the date or the city, but the air was fragrant with the delicious scent of pakoras frying in mustard oil. It was rice and curry that day. Amma had filled a small bowl with pakoras for him, but the tongue is the tongue, and the hand is the hand, and the feet, and a bade still small. He simply had to return to the kitchen again and again and grab a fistful of pakoras from the platter, piping hot, tender and fluffy, here and there a crispy beak or tail protruding. Chomp, chomp. Amma came back and saw, dragging him by a bush-shirted arm. She cried, "And what will be left for the curry? You are spoiling dinner for everyone else." She had slapped him on the cheek with a touch that felt so sweet as he sat in the tree, as soft as a Mysore pallu. But that day she had been wearing a cotton sari, and she had wrapped the pallu around her front and stuffed it in at the waist, making her look like a warrior heroine as she patted her heated face at times and smacked her little bade at others. The son, sleeping in the tree, rested his hand lovingly upon his cheek. By then the crows had returned to the tree with a gang of youngsters. "We don't care if you don't understand anything else, but do learn about the saris," the eldest crow purred. The young crows, eager to attain knowledge, took out their notepads and each ripped out a feather for a quill, dunked it in the tree sap, wrote down name and date, and sat at the ready. First they all wrote, "He is sleeping." It was a strange sight in the tree, a human, sleeping with his hand on his cheek, and loads of crows gathered about him like students, seated on each branch in rows as they took notes, listening to the words in the human's mind. The crowess was their preceptor, and when they didn't understand something the sleeping man was thinking, she would clarify. Sarees unfurled softly, swinging from branches. The crows watched in amazement. The man's heart whispers unspooled onwards. And eventually a grown Bade had begun to bring saris for Amma. When she heard she was going to Kota, Ma herself had asked for one of the famous Kota weave saris, the Kota Doria. It was a light calf color, overlaid in checks of the same shade, with a thin gold brocade border. Was I right to get white? Bade had said, questioning himself. But it was so lovely, and it was not mourning white. Ma used to wear the sari on summer evenings when she strolled out to the cantonment with Papa. He remembered. Sometimes Brigadier Dhillon would ring up and invite the two of them to dinner with his own parents in the cantonment. Kota thread, the crows cross-purred to one another. Then they noticed a magenta sari bolt that had just unrolled in Bade's mind. The whole tree was absolutely dazzled. That was a patola sari, the son remembered. A patola! The crows were breathless in admiration. Take a look at that color. Wow! It had been printed with a design of ecstatic maidens dancing the Ras Leela. A Nair Kunj pattern sari, Bade remembered. He had got it from Charminar in Hyderabad. He had bought one for Bahu too, but she had been more delighted by Ma's. Ma had said, "You wear it. How can an old mare like me wear something so fancy flirty?" But Bade had insisted she wear it, and how darling she had looked. It must have been his wife's burning envy that had turned into sparks and burnt a few holes in it when the washerman had pressed it with a hot iron. Even so, Ma mended the holes and continued to wear it. And for at least 3 or 4 years, Bahu would ask for one just like it every time he went on a business trip, or if anyone was coming or going from Hyderabad, as though that Nair Kunj consumed her with envy both waking and sleeping. Perhaps now it's hanging in her closet, but it must be even more threadbare by now. But no sari was as regal as the Garhwal, he said in his thoughts. Regal, a young lady crow noted, thinking this to be a type of sari. It's a Garhwal, silly owl, her sister scolded. I am a crow, not an owl, she retorted, rolling her eyes. As he unfolded the sari in the tree, Bade began to think. See, thanks to Ma, I had the chance to learn about the skills of weavers. How many men were likely to know what a Garhwal sari looked like? The main body of the sari is cotton, but the pallu and border are silk, embroidered with gold and silver threads. This one was a yellow sari with a parrot green pallu, and it was, wow, lovely, loaded down with mangoes in every ripple and curve. They were printed from designs on blocks of stone in wood carved in the Garhwa region of Andhra. At this, Bade's thoughts turned to mangoes, the juice of which he had spilled on Ma's Pochampalli Ikkat sari. Then too, Bade had been small, and he had wept mightily. Ma had kept trying to calm him, saying, "Look, son, there are so many colors in this sari. See? Maroon, dark red, henna, turmeric. The design blends them all together, so the stains don't even show." Whenever Ma wore that sari, little Bade performed a circumambulation about her, holding out portions of the sari, looking for where the mango juice had spilled. But he couldn't distinguish it from the design, and everyone teased him for his anxious obsession. But he continued to worry. And the kalamkari. Kalamkari, one crow girl cried, and began scribbling away. Before that, Pochampalli, and after that will come Kanjivaram. The crowess with the crow's eyes spoke softly, as though completing a multiplication table. How do you know? Jackanapes asked excitedly. Shh! She motioned and smiled. She wore kalamkari saris quite often, her ma. He had seen the artisans tie hairs to a bamboo stalk to make brushes for painting mosaic patterns onto the fabric. Call them artists, Ma had scolded. Those saris truly were something. The colors were all unique and came from natural materials, brown, dark red, deep copper. They came from roots, betel nut, metal, copper, turmeric, flowers, leaves, and there was even indigo in one. What essence must that have been made from? I have forgotten if I ever knew. And Kanjivaram. At which Jackanapes glanced with surprise at Clovis. Wow, how did you crow that beforehand? He asked, and again she smiled her secret smile. She had a black Kanjivaram, with the story of Ram and Sita depicted in white all over it, so full of designs, yet simple and elegant at the same time. Because there is no color like black, Clovis explained to the youths. Aha! Everyone chorused back. They carefully stroked the lovely sari as it swayed from a branch. Not with the beak, she hissed. So they switched to their wings. Bade had bought it for 2,000 rupees, his first trip to the south. He had bought one for his wife too, but she would also borrow the one he had brought for Amma. It was very expensive for those days, but even more costly than that was the Paithani sari. Pathan, a crow crowed. Pathani, a girl crow corrected. Oh ho, the senior lady crow hushed them both. Paithani. Paithani. He had found it on Vadodara, at the home of the Gaikwar family. A man had come from Aurangabad bearing a bundle of saris on his head. After all, where else could you find a better Paithani sari than from a royal family? Show him this one, the Rani said, pushing it towards him. Take it for your wife. For Ma too, he had thought. The Bangri peacock one, or this lotus one, or this Ashavali. The sari seller told him that each and every fiber of those saris was spun and woven by hand. It takes a year and a half to make one sari, Sahib. I'll reduce the price for you, since you are the guest of Her Highness. He picked a purple one and one grass green. This too was hung from the tree, and one of the crow students carefully wrapped it in leaves so it wouldn't get caught on a pointy twig and tear. Then everyone turned and gazed at Bade with curiosity, because he would begin to laugh as he recalled his trip to Tamil Nadu. He had been driving along and had chanced to see a brick red sari displayed in a shop window. He had asked the driver to stop so he could just take a look, and gone inside to ask about it. The salesgirl had said brusquely in English, "No sale, damage." He was about to turn away, but his heart pulled him back. "Please show it to me," he said. "Damage, damage," the girl had shouted, as though speaking to a deaf person. "But I can look at it," he yelled back. The girl looked at him as if she would swallow whole this time-wasting fool. She removed the sari from the window and practically flung it in his face. But I could tell right away that this was one amazing sari. Tamil Nadu silk, the color of red bricks, peacock all over, and a den of lions on the pallu. Such fine work and not a single empty space. And the silk so refined. He touched it, weighed it, caressed it, put it down, then picked it up again and asked, "How much?" The girl was like, "This guy is nuts." "Damage!" she now shrieked as though handing down a sentence and began pointing out the damage to him. "There's a tear from here to here. Here too. It's ripped. Here's another." But Bade had already understood that this was the only sari of its kind in the entire world. No problem. And in that era of low prices, and for a reduced rate at that, he still had to pay a few thousand rupees for it. Oh my, but that sari. His mother had worn it, and so had his beloved wife. The tears were mended. The mending in those days was brilliant. Ma used to roll it up like a small carpet, then wrap another sari around it, then wrap that in paper and tie a ribbon around it and stand it up in the wardrobe so it wouldn't get torn any further. At this, Bari suddenly remembered the sari that had been wrapped around that sari. It was made of tissue, the color of clouds, with gold dissolving in it. Real gold. So fantastic when he hung it from a branch, the crows went wild with rapture. Gold! That's right, the elders explained. People even have this kind of sari melted down to extract the gold. We would never do such an inexcusable thing, said one, touching it, enchanted. Careful, another yelled. This one will tear too. Hey, look at this one. Another crow directed everyone's attention elsewhere, to where the sun was very carefully unfolding a different style of sari, a small one. What does he remembering heart say? The crows began to listen. This one I did not buy. I had seen it in the temple of the Tamil minister's wife. Her father performed ancestral priestly duties there. It was a sari used to dress the goddess. And what should happen but that I took a liking to that one as well. That too was red, but not at all showy. Crowy? In a temple? One crow asked with astonishment. Not crowy, showy. Another attempted to explain. I'll explain. First listen, Crowes interjected, and take a look. The sari was covered with golden checks. It was rather narrow, Bade thought, but Ma was delighted, and she paired it with another sari so it would be long enough to wear truly. He remarked to himself in a congratulatory tone. I had no idea what a sari aficionado was. Crowes now explained this to the little ones. The language that rings out all around you fills your unconscious mind, and then shocks you and makes you wonder, when did I learn all this? That is why one should wander about where people speak well. Bade's sari class was going swimmingly. It was altogether separate from the sight across the way, inside his sister's flat, which he had climbed up in the tree to spy on. He was unfurling sari-wrapped memories in an orderly fashion in his lumber estate, hanging them up in the tree one by one. His students were absolutely ecstatic themselves, and Bade's heart whispers continued anon. It suddenly occurred to the sleeping Bade's heart that there had been a kind of sari tug-of-war going on. Bahu always liked the saris he brought for Ma better than her own. She would insist that Ma wear them once, to inaugurate them. So they would officially be Ma's. After that, she would borrow them for herself, without fail. Sometimes Ma would say, why don't you keep it now? Because Bahu would step all over the edge of her saris in high heels, since she wore her saris flush with the ground, and then there would be holes in the border. For her part, Bahu complained that all the sari blouses were cut to Ma's measurements, so she had to make do by mixing and matching. The sari conflagration between the mother and daughter-in-law was of an ongoing nature. Their household always resounded with it, and both would dress up on special occasions. Although Ma was more inclined to plain saris, and she had started wearing less colorful ones even when his father was still alive. Oh, he suddenly remembered. That deep blue sari I brought from Shantiniketan. It was a designer sari from Gayatri Ji's business. It had a print of Mughal design. Bahu had been with him, and she had chosen it, saying, Ma doesn't wear the over-colorful ones as much. It was almost blue-black, printed with coal-black wine goblets. "How dull it is," said Bade, finding faults. But Ma had liked it very much. She had worn it to an award ceremony where she had handed out prizes to the soldiers and their wives. There were even photos of her in that sari. "This sari is completely different." The crows gazed upon it admiringly. Crowes reached out a wing and draped the garment over a lower branch. In the heat of the debate that Monday evening, or was it a Tuesday, they had waved their wings and feet about animatedly, but now, under the tutelage of Crow's auntie, they climbed into the tree and began to gaze calmly upon the saris unfurling from Bare's heart. They were astonished at the variety. Several of them wished that crows could swan about it in such attire. But they were crows, not swans, after all. And so, as night fell, a sorry mood spread across the tree. A sleeping person is enriched by dreams, where he sees sights about which he has no idea when conscious. That is to say, some saris about which perhaps Bade never even knew also fluttered into view. On top of that, there were the sympathetic crows, eager to listen to the heart whispers. Now who could stop the tree from becoming a full-blown festival? Bare's heart billowed along with the lovely saris, and he slept comfortably upon a branch. In the meantime, surely by mistake on the part of some municipal authority in the forestry department, some soft street lights came on, and the countless saris hanging from the tree twinkled spectacularly in the pleasing light. And the crows touched the saris, examined them up close, even wrapped themselves in them, becoming so mad for them they reeled and spun like tops. And they marveled, "Look at that! The tie-dye! And the gold and silver embroidery of the zardozi! And the bandage! The tanchoi! The ikkat! The ajarak! The jamdani! The one with the chicken work! The chanderi! The madhubani! The maheshwari! The muga! The kosa! And that balucheri that has women smoking hookahs on it! And that white dhakai! That tasar from Bhagalpur! That Bengali Shantipuri made on a handloom! And this one from Basta that's sandal-colored with drums printed on it and was cut up later and turned into dupattas. And this one is just as lovely, a lugra brought from Dang, light pink with a turquoise border. A bit short, but Ma wore it quite often at home. The color was not fast. And then my sister, who only liked unstylish villager-type clothing anyway, took it away, but of course she is patently ridiculous." "Patently," the crows noted. "Paithani," Crowes said sternly. "We already got that one." A crow picked up his notepad and showed her. Then he stopped, and propping one cheek against a wing in the attitude of a promising student, turned to the crow-eyed Crowes and asked, "But why, auntie? Why did Ma renounce such beautiful saris and start dressing in sacks?" "Because, child, she has peeled away all her outer layers, and now she is opening the inner ones." Just at that moment, Bade, who had been gazing upon his mother's former sari-swayed self, awoke with a start, as though recalling the new Ma's mono-layered attire. Quickly he began brushing off his own clothing in which all sorts of ants had begun to frolic. Actually, one must crush them by rubbing them, thus killing two birds, that is, ants and mosquitoes, with one stone. He had not been taught this in school, nor at university. "What's this that's happened?" But he glanced at his watch, and stepping from one branch to another, tangling and untangling himself among the billowing saris, jumped down. A whirlwind of saris arose in which the Tangchoi, Tangail, Garhwal, Banarasi, Maheshwari, Kanta, Pochampalli, Kattak, Balucheri, the embroidered one, sprung up anew, and a shimmering cloud of dust flew all about, glistening like beads of sweat. But Bade had climbed down. He glared angrily up at his sister's flat. He could see Ma walking about. Swish, swish. Good God, her foot will get caught in something. She'll fall, he muttered. And fall she did, just not right then. Chapter 46. The first messenger was a crow, whom no one noticed because those days are gone when a person would see a bird and realize that it was Jayant or Jatayu, the one who recognized Sita and passed on the details to Ram, etc. Trees, sky, rivers, birds. The honor of all these has been flung into cement. Water is a stinking drain, the sky a roof of smoke, and the bird, if it is a crow, has surely just come to steal or leave droppings. Of course, the thought of theft did occur to him the moment he arrived, though truly he had come simply to deliver this message. Seeing the fried toast on the table soaked in rajma and cooked in a sauce of nice red tomatoes, the heart did patter. A struggle with greed ensued. Hunger, he told himself, but his recently awakened conscience agitated him by providing the name greed instead. It really is hard to distinguish, he thought. Everyone, whether good or evil, gets hungry. But since nowadays the tummy begins to rumble at the sight of tasty morsel, one has no idea whether it's one or the other. When he tried to avert his gaze, he suddenly wondered what difference it would make to anyone's well-being anyway if he just tried a nibble. The window is open. I have both foot and feather. I could hop over, or I could skip or swoop. After that, I'll inform him his mother has taken a tumble. But are they in any state to hear? Husband and wife were bickering. On that day, the exact date of which is no matter, because this is not a history, just a her story. Bade was squabbling with his wife. Where are Amma's sarees? Bahu, whose threshold was near zero after so much shock as her overseas son understood, started crying. What did I do? Hide them? Do you see me walking around in them? I certainly didn't take them. Don't I have my own? And was I the one who became the wishing tree and said, take it all, take my whole life, all my worldly possessions? And is all this food being cooked for anyway if all you want to do is eat bread and ketchup? And why do all the glasses smell like whiskey? My friends don't drink that flavor of juice, and you are just hoarding all the money when onions are selling for 100 rupees a kilo. Is this your answer to my question, or are you purposefully changing the subject and calling me a money hoarder? So I am a sorry hoarder, and I am the one putting all the money in shares. Did I touch your money? It's Amma's. When a quarrel flares up, the agitation of the adversary can be a source of satisfaction. The moment Amma's name came up, Bari's anger hit the roof. Even more satisfying is when the adversary, in this case Bade, loses control in a fit of anger and babbles something from that height of rage which Bahu can then broadcast. What a low thing, he said. How coarse, how petty. And the offspring across the sea will hear of it and will wring his hands with despair and worry. What shall I do? Should I leave my work behind and come home to take charge? Everything's in Amma's name, and the other names are your sons. What will I get? And what of me? And what of your mother? Has she given nothing to her beloved Bahu? Look, you better stop talking about my mother. Okay, enough. Take her sarees next time, threatened Bade. You won't go yourself. I have to get her to sign the checks, as if I get anything out of going to that house, where not even tea is served properly. Stop the sari check chuck chick, gasped the crow, controlling his saliva. Ma's taken a fall. He cowed. This was Jackanapes, the same crow who had jumped up and disrupted the meeting and threatened to do this and that, when Crowes had reasoned with him and made him understand. First, he had been intent on busting Bade's head. Now he wished to caress that same pate, having learned of the tale of mother longing. Such is youth. Impulses leap. One moment we are ready to give our own lives. The next we are bent on taking the lives of others. One thing leads to another. The question of how the young crow had gone from ill-wisher to well-wisher could turn out to be a long story. He too had had an Amma, one who had died in childbirth. An egg burst in her womb and got stuck, and she had wasted away. Her breathing had slowed, then stopped altogether. His aunt had spared him from wandering from door to door, or rather from nest to nest. His hard youthful heart had melted at the mention of mothers, rendering him like a mother himself. As in the song, a show of Khuli palak mein jhoota gussa, band palak mein pyar. False rage in open eyes, true love in closed. This too was gone with the wind. That's the thing. Both emotions are surging inside, but which will be dominant, and when will it spill over? This has been the concern of kingdoms, governments, leaders since forever, unless they make use of it for political ends, which is always a temptation. Here, the deciding factor that is emerging, despite being unnecessary, is that of youth. Youth could make the crow the instrument of others' self-interest. Act now, think later, is how things shake down in the storm of youth. Context and environment will determine which way the puppet jumps, into the shove or into love. And since greed has been mentioned, let us return to the toast with beans. Greed is present in both love and shove, the way that a dove is present in love. So the crow, forgetting hostility, became eager to be of solace. His heart swelled so for Bade that he made his way to the latter's new post-retirement home after asking the way, and he began to tap his beak, not on the door but on the window, right by where Bade was sitting, to tell him, "Hurry up, your most beloved, revered Amma has taken a fall." But neither husband nor wife saw or heard, and the crow could not help seeing the food and salivating for it. Attention is divided when so many provocations and proclivities occur at once, and for a moment the crow might have felt disoriented and wondered why he had come, like colonial amnesia. The ear over there, the heart somewhere else, one eye looking this way and the other that. But recalling his feet and feathers, compassion again surged in him, and he considered how the poor things don't have feet or feathers like mine, and they never even manage to fully conjure a beak. So really, what good are they? With this surge of sympathy, all the pity returned which had brought him there. Today, that is, Amma has fallen. I have seen it with my own eyes. I have come all this way asking directions to your house. Please come. So there is still more left to the tale of our young crow, jackanapes. But since we have said so, there must be a just so tale as well. Such a tiny word, so, but nonetheless not as insignificant as one might think. Important linguists, since the time of Sanskrit to the present moment of any Montoid, have been quizzing the meaning of so, wondering what makes it so puzzling. But despite the immensely amusing qualities of the so tale, Amma has had a fall, so it does us no credit to linger over fun. Thus, we shall cast aside this and countless other fascinating topics. But of course, every single topic is endless, and no tale is ever complete. Not even life. It is foolish to think life finishes with death. Even in death, life is infinite. Today, life is in danger because scientists have been born who are busy trying to put an end to death, who want to find a way to live for all eternity. They are surely about to put an end to life. Perhaps they don't know that. When Yayati received the boon to remain youthful forever, he himself became eager to disown it. His enmity was not with youth, but with forever. If anything lasts forever, its value is wiped out. Life exists because there's death, and joy because there's sorrow, and so on and so forth. But this is a thinking matter, not a laughing matter. As the great Bade Ghulam Ali Khan once admonished when he sang the line, Baju band khul khul jaye, see how her armlet slips away, and explained that the armlet of the woman in love keeps slipping off because she's grown too thin with pining for her lover. And then his audience burst out laughing. And going forward, incidents keep occurring. Even when they are over, they are not over. They remain entombed, entranced in samadhi. And it may only take a puff of breeze to bring them back to life. Something always remains, whether a sow tail or a crow tail. At any rate, the crow must go on. He knocked, but who noticed? Important news, important, important, he called out. Who has the time? What with a world war afoot? The crow cleared his throat and began to speak very slowly, like an elderly person. Look, today I return to my meeting venue, and you will be pleased to know that I thought I would take another look at the sarees you had hung out there, touch them, smell them, and also check up on your mother's health. So, the sarees, after you woke up, they must have floated away and vanished. So, I turned around to take a peep at your Maji from the balcony. The morning was damp with dew. The sky blinked lethargically, opening its pink eyes as it slowly spun them round the world, and a pink haze spread all about. Even my own dark reflection took on a reddish cast, as I noticed in the balcony window. But before I could rejoice, prance, I saw something else and became terrified. The scene began to unfold before these very eyes of mine, as though it was just waiting for me to get started. Your sister was standing there, holding the tea tray, and your Maji was entering the room. The crow was on a roll, but then he noticed that his announcement was having no impact on the flames of war. The toast was also still sitting there. He came hopping a little further in from the window, but nothing changed. No, no, he said after listening to Bade's words. It has nothing to do with the sarees, nor with her tent-like attire. That only arrived yesterday. The Hijra had it sewn and brought it by. Your ma hadn't shrunk so much in just one night, and the cloth was above her ankles. That's why I could see her ankle turn. The fault belongs to the Shah Bulbul that came to perch on that branch in the rosy down where you had hung the Pochampalli sari covered with mangoes. Your mother saw, and she was misled, as all willy Shahs are apt to mislead. Power is false, but whoever begins to feel vain about his own power starts to believe in his own invincibility. Such a Shah becomes arrogant and dictatorial. People are fools, allowing such power to accrue to one person, believing he stands for law and order and beauty and will make the world the greatest, when really he will only do so for himself. Do not consider this to be evidence of my own hurt ego. I'm black, so what? I have my pride, and I harbor no mad desire to become a Shah Bulbul, or a swan, or whatever. But your mother has entered a brand new life. She sees all with new eyes, body and mind agog with excitement. She tottered. She wanted to soar towards the Shah Bulbul, but we are the ones who fly. If she turned fast, the bird would fly away. So she wanted to turn that way slowly. Understand? They got not a jot. But by now husband and wife, worn and weary, ran out of steam for their quarrel, so one went here and the other there. Bahu arranging the breakfast on the table, Bade back in bed, eyes closed, obscuring his melancholy in the trappings of anger. The crow thought, "All's calm. Now they'll listen." He ratcheted up the tapping. Tap, tap. Bade opened his eyes. The crow was before him in the window, bathed in a soft light. He reached out slowly so that he could pull the curtain aside fully. In the eyes of the crow, the agility of jump hop, the two of them face to face, eye to eye. Would Bade know that his crow had been there on that sad evening? He probably didn't know he had narrowly avoided his skull being cracked. Who knows, maybe Bade thought all crows look alike, the way Americans think all Sardars do, and Germans think all Koreans do, and white people think all black people do, and crass people think all amazing people do, and coarse minds think all clouds do, and leechers think all women do, and humans think all ants do. Anyway, he looked as though he sort of recognized him. The crow began to chatter fulsomely, now that he thought Bade was listening. He who does not understand simply hears cow, cow. But there were in Jackanape's speech the cadence and stylings of language, the expressiveness of feelings. Everything was present. "Please think," the crow told Bade. "If the heart leaps up like a crow, and the feet are like a tortoise, then doesn't it just follow that the elderly will fall? Your mother's heart and stride were moving on two different tracks. One leg went forward and the other back. The Shah Bulbul must have wanted this," the crow said, offering his political analysis, "for the footwork to get muddled. And that is what happened. Ma's sandal slipped, and in an effort to right her balance, she began to turn backwards. Your ma cried out, 'Oh no, oh no, oh no!' Your sister freaked out, and me totally helpless. By the time I thought of jumping forward and stopping her, catching her, she had already gone splat." At that very moment, Sid popped in and said, in his typical style, "Good morning, Pop. Look, the crow is also saying good morning. Is there anything to eat, Mom?" And everything came together. The battle cooled. Sid sat. Mom handed him the toast and beans, also the fried mushrooms. She tried to scoop them up with a fork and popped the first bite into her eldest son's mouth. But it dropped under the table, and the crow son immediately jumped up. Pop saw the crow pop up, and he leaned over and picked up the piece and tossed it through the window towards him. "My husband will never improve." Bahu shook her head. But Sid had dissolved her anger. Bade said, "He's better than you. He's listening to me quietly and not talking back." Sid laughed. Young Jackanape's eyes flashed crowishly and were a sight to see, but the news was important, so he gave it again. "Eat quickly and come. Amma's had a fall." "I'm going." Sid jumped up. The crow thought he meant because of his message. But it turned out Sid had an important meeting with the International Olympics Association members. If this thing worked out, his life would be made. "First go see your grandmother. She's had a fall," said the crow, swallowing his crumb. "When will you go to see Dadi?" Bade asked. The crow looked at him with gratitude. "After Sunday," said Sid. "Take her sarees, so she doesn't fall." "She did fall. She's already fallen. But it's got nothing to do with sarees," as the crow and later the doctor explained to Bade. But there's no worth attached to the cawing of crows, and with doctors it's either all ears and yes, 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 or no, no, no to every word they say. And some say these are matters to be pondered and not laughed off, and others feel it's all to do with heart whisperings, and these are two entirely different approaches.